Come on, get in here. Strengthen Your Soul is on. Get in here. It's our last one for the weekend. We'll be back Monday at 8 as always. But come on in. Get in here. Today, did you know you're looking especially good? Oh, yeah, because today it's a Friday. So come on in. Get in here. As always, our schedule 8 o'clock, we open up. 8:01, we drink together. 8:02, we get started. 8:10, we try something. And 8:15, we wrap up. Now, I said this yesterday. I'll say it again today. If you miss the drink, if you come in a few minutes late, what happens? Can we go back? Can we do it again? Yes. Yes, we can. But I might miss your post or your comment. So if you do, you can just rewatch. You can take as many sips as you want. Just envision us doing it all together because it's better together. Anyways, get in here. Tonight I'm having a Bengal spice tea. It's cinnamony, it's sweet, it's delicious, it's sugar free, it's amazing. It's Friday. Get in here, grab your drink. You got about 10 seconds, and then we're going to take a drink together. Tonight, I'm doing something I wasn't actually anticipating, and that is this. I want to lay out for you my story. So I mentioned it, and a couple of videos ago, and a bunch of you reached out and said, I'd love to hear why you do what you do and how you met God and what that looked like in your life. So we're going to talk about that tonight. But with that being said, let's cheers together. Cheers. Let's take a sip. And let's talk about your soul. And I guess tonight we're going to talk about mine too. And we got work to do. So a lot of people want to know, Kyle, why is it that you do what you do? So for those of you who don't know, I'm now a pastor. I actually started a church. For many people, it's sort of unlike church that they've ever envisioned, especially Canadians. Uh, Especially if you have like a nominal church background or no church background, they go, that's different. So why do I do what I do? It's a great question. And I'll start by telling you a bit of my story, and I'll tell you my first encounter with God. Maybe not my first, but the one that profoundly changed my life. And then we're actually going to have an activity, hopefully, that's based upon that can strengthen your soul tonight. So that's what we're going for. So I grew up in a new to faith family. So my folks, a little bit before I was born, neither of them were practicing any type of faith. My grandparents on one side had no religion as best we could tell, and the other one was maybe nominal, but probably no religious affiliation. So my folks kind of had none. Anyways, right before I was born, they actually encountered God, had their soul strengthened. So I grew up in that kind of family. So I grew up as a Christian, you might say. And I had some encounters with God, but the biggest life change for me happened at 16. And this is for the negative. So I grew up going to church. It was normal for me. And somewhere around the age of 16, I fell into what I would call a religious view of God. And I've said this to you before, that religion always leads to death. Religion is not positive. A relationship with God will absolutely feed and strengthen your soul. It will align you with the very purposes of life. And I believe, and I actually want to tell you, it comes through Jesus, 100%. I've experienced it. But at 16, I became really religious. And by religious, what I meant was this. I became a really great person who is deeply proud and deeply afraid. So I'll get into it. I got time, I think. So I was the best. This is going to sound so arrogant. And it is kind of arrogant, but it was also true. I was the best person I knew. I got the highest grades in the biggest school in Regina. So I can't get too excited about myself, but had the best grades out of anyone I knew. I listened to my parents better than any of my friends. I went to church. I didn't even swear. I didn't fool around with girls. I didn't drink. I didn't smoke. I was clean. I was good. And then at 16, something happened that showed me that religion is just a facade and it always leads to death. And that was this. We moved to Calgary. And when we moved to Calgary, I became really angry with God. And I didn't grieve it properly. Now I'm going to talk to you about grief tonight. And so at about 18, 17 and a half, I just completely walked away from faith. I said, not in. Not going to follow you, God. I'm done. I'm going to do whatever I want. And so what I started to do is I started to drink a bunch. And because I had been such a high achiever in life, one of the ways I had figured out to feel acceptable, to feel lovable, to feel uh, that people wouldn't reject me was to perform really well. Okay, so that was sort of my pattern. And I decided I was going to become the best partier I knew, and I was going to try to get as many women as I could to love me. And so I would make women fall in love with me to sort of fill in this deep sense of rejectability. So again, in my life, if you didn't perform perfectly, you weren't lovable. That wasn't from my parents. I can't blame that on anybody. That's just how I interpreted my life. And so there was no more achieving in a religious sense. So I couldn't be accepted because I was really performing well. So again, I went into partying, and I wanted to have women fall in love with me. And so when they did, and a handful of them did, I don't want to give you the wrong impression, but probably five or six women really fell for me. As soon as I found that they fell in love with me, I would take their love and I would sort of devour it to try to fill in this sense of rejectable, unlovable, not strong, not good enough. And so I would take their love, I'd devour it, and it never felt like it filled the hole. So then I'd do something, it's to my great shame, I would just kind of dismiss them out of my life. It's never mean. It was never awful, and fortunately, I never got into too much trouble physically, personally. Just never did. But I would use these women and then discard them. And then I did this a number of times. And then one of the weird parts about my life, though, is that even though I'd walked from faith, I was partying, I was drinking, I went to University of Calgary. I wanted to be a lawyer so that I could make a lot of money. Again, just achievement, achievement, achievement. No interest in God, no interest in Jesus. Walked away. I still went to church on Sundays. Kind of bizarre, but it was sort of my parents' rule. I didn't want to fight with them about it. It was too much effort. And so I remember I'd always sit in the front row, dead center, with a buddy of mine, and he was a bit of a cocaine addict. So we were the party kids. I never really used drugs; it wasn't my jam, but I drank a ton. Anyways, I remember one Sunday we were there and we were singing songs, and we were standing front row, dead center. And that day they said, "All we're going to do is we're going to sing. We're just going to sing a whole bunch of songs and uh, try to connect with God that way." It's like the worst news ever. Like if you're new to church or not walking with God, singing is the worst part. But there we were. So my buddy and I were standing at the front. We started singing along a little bit because it's like the social pressure. Anyways, in the middle of like singing, I remember it felt like, here's what it felt like. It felt like someone, no, it was Jesus, gripped my heart. And I felt all of the sadness and all of the emptiness and all of the hollowing out of myself that I had done. So I just felt empty. I felt purposeless. I felt like a sense of despair. And I started weeping. And I hadn't cried for years at that point. I hadn't cried for years at all. My grandpa, who I was close to, died. And I remember I didn't cry when he died. I'd just become so hardened. Anyways, I remember I got on my knees and I said this prayer. It wasn't eloquent at all. It was something like this: God, you win. Whatever you want, whatever you do, whatever you say, I'll say yes. And very clearly, like a voice in my head and heart, in the very center of my being, I heard very clearly, Kyle, I've called you to be a pastor and you need to go to Bible college. And I got up off my knees after weeping and crying and going, okay, God, I'm in. A changed human being. a really changed human being. I could go into that in depth. But what I will say is this. Uh, you know, the next woman who I made fall in love with me, like all the others, turns out I was in love with her too. See, the hole in my soul, God was filling. All the emptiness he was filling, all the purposelessness he was filling, all of my need to do all these good things to be accepted was taken care of. It's the whole message of Jesus. And it moved from a head thing to a heart reality, to a soul reality. And my soul was unbelievably strengthened. So the next woman I fell in love with, or fell in love with me, I fell in love with too. We got married. And I knew that day I needed to become a pastor because I didn't want anyone to die under the weight of religion. And I didn't want anybody to have the hollowness of living life without God. That's why I do what I do. And you might say, do you think I'm living a hollow life if I'm living life without God? Here's what I would say to you. You have no idea what you're missing. You just have no idea what you're missing. And the strength and love could take your life that may seem to have good meaning now and just take it to a whole new level. But there is something that you are missing. Absolutely. So I want to give you a little bit about how my story might be able to help you. One is this. What you need to know is my deepest desire growing up was just always to help people. Like when people said, what do you want to do with your life? I wanted to help people. Wanted to be, once I got past the like, I want to be an astronaut because space is cool, or a police officer because shooting guns is cool. I got to this place probably around like grade 7, 8, 9, where I said, I just really want to help people. I like helping people more than anything. So from my story, I want to give you 2 questions for thinking and reflection. One is this, right now, what is hollowing out your soul? So hear me. The drinking and the partying and the girls, they were fun in the moment and empty in the morning. It was fun in the moment and hollow in the morning. Every morning I would wake up and I'd feel the same. I didn't really get hungover either. That's partly why I could drink so much. I didn't get hungover. Uh, but I always felt hollow. So you're going to ask the universe, God, Jesus, what is hollowing out my soul? And then you're going to, a subset of that is help to leave it behind. And number 2, what desire can I live into more fully? So for me, I had this desire to help people, and I wasn't living into it fully. And so I had this emptiness of the soul. And again, that's probably my hope for you. It's why I'm doing these videos. I really want us to have strength in souls. Now, for some of us, as we do this, it's just going to be a tune-up. 2% change, 5% change, 10% change even. For some of you watching right now, I believe this, that if you were honestly seeking God to go, God, I do want to have change. Like what you did with Kyle, he was self-centered, narcissistic, cruel, vindictive, mean, partier, shallow, hollow, empty, and then you changed him totally and you filled him. I want that experience. If you seek him like that, for some of you, you'll have like a 70% life change. Some of you will stick around for sure. Some of me has. But you'll have an enormous life change. So what I want to do is just provide a space for us to actually just ask these questions. So think and pray and listen for thoughts that pop into your head. And maybe God will speak clearly to you. I'm going to pray a simple prayer over you, give you about 30 seconds to just work through this. And you should take longer on this if need be and wrap up. But that's my story. There's lots more to it, but that's the version that can fit in for tonight. So let me pray for you. Father, I pray for those who are watching this who aren't sure about faith, who maybe have walked away like I had or just never experienced you. Jesus, by your strength and kindness and spirit, would you speak to them tonight? Would you help them figure out what's hollowing out their soul? And would you show them what desires they're meant to live in more fully? So, for those of you just listening, just sit there and listen and answer those two questions, jot it down. So, I hope you enjoyed this Friday special. I hope your soul is getting stronger. I hope that you experience what I experienced. That's honestly the truth. That's why I do what I do. I've experienced the love and power of God through Jesus in a way that filled the hole, made me go from hollow to full. And I want that for you too. So, that being said, hope you have an amazing weekend. We'll be back on Monday for Strengthen Your Soul, 8 o'clock. That being said, we'll see you soon. Have a great weekend.